Okay, so today we are going to teach you how to build a pirate ship. So we started by building a cardboard model just so we could figure out the right scale of it. As you can see, we put the measurements on here. So we did the bottom at 5 feet, 8 inches high. We put these little nooks in it so that we could sit the other pieces inside of it. We built 2 of those, and then we did these U shapes that are 1.5 feet across, 8 inches wide, and then 3 feet from one end to the other end. And then we did these notches in the U shapes as well, and we did them at 76 degrees right to the middle because we want the front of the ship to kind of bend in some, so it creates that front piece. This is what it looks like all put together, and so that's what we're going to start by building. This is just kind of a rough draft of what this ship is basically going to look like when we're done. So we cut out those 2 first pieces out of plywood. We used a fairly sturdy plywood because we wanted to make sure it would stand up in the winter. And then we cut out our U shapes, and please be safer than us when you're cutting things out. We are stupid, and I know that. That's what the U shapes look like when they're cut out. And as you can see, we drew the little notches on there where we're going to fit those pieces together. They're going to fit together like this. So we cut out those at that 76-degree angle. And we did that to both of the U's. And then we did that on the main pieces as well and made sure they fit together just like this. So that's what that first structure is going to look like. We're going to make it a little stabler though, because this would fall over very easily in the wind and it's just not super stable. So in order to do that, we took 2x4s and we drew these little angles to match the angles on that we cut out of the notches. And we fit that first piece right in there. Make sure that it does not cover up your notches. Do the same thing for the other one. And then attach them to the back side of it. Again, do that on both of them. We put 6 screws, so we put 2 on the ends and then 2 in the middle just to make sure it stayed really well. And that's what that looks like with our notches free and clear. And then we cut out 2 pieces to go on the very back of that U to help it hold the shape. Because we're putting 2x4s on the ends like this. So we found where that kind of fits perfect and it won't get in the way. And then we attached that to the back of the U shapes as well on both of them again. And then we measured and cut 2x4s to go on the sides just like that. Now we only did them to right before the curve starts because we're gonna put more 2x4s to fit in that curve as well. Now make sure when you're putting the screws in for this that you keep in mind the slats you're gonna put on. So we drew our slats where they're gonna go, and made sure and put our screws in the middle so that we didn't end up trying to fight for the same space when we put the slats on. So now it looks like that. And now we filled up this extra space with little 3 3/4 inch 2x4s again, just to make that curve, but also make sure that your notches stay free and clear because you need those. And attached all those. As you can see, we had to adjust them constantly, but we got them all in. And that is what both of them looked like once we were finished. And then we checked them again, and that is our structure. Now this is the base that we're building for the steering wheel. We used PVC to build this base because we needed it to lean over because we were picking up the ship to make it look like it crashed. This was the piece that actually held the steering wheel. And these are the materials that we used to make it. Now we're cutting out the big circle first. So we marked the middle of our plywood and just drew that circle to cut out. And then we made our smaller circle, marked a couple spots and did the same kind of string technique, which actually works really well. You just have to hold that string really tight. And then we marked all the spots for that little tiny circle in the middle. And then we measured those middle to middle. And then put the thickness around those. Since we kind of build that circle, we made sure we crossed that out. So we didn't accidentally cut it there because that would be bad. So then we cut out this whole shape. And that's what that looks like. And then we cut out the little pieces in the middle. It was kind of easiest to make this little like circle, almost gumdrop shape out of them first, and then go and cut the edges just because it's hard to kind of cut that turn without doing that. But that actually worked really well. And then we use this little tool to round out the edges and just give it kind of a nicer, less plywoody, boxy shape. And I cut out this little stencil for the tips and just drew it on every single one. And then we cut those out. And then we use this drilling piece to just cut that hole in the middle and ended up with this. I took a little Dremel tool and just kind of smoothed everything out a little bit. And this is what it looked like once we were done. Then we took this shelf paper that looks like wood and I just traced the pieces and then I measured the sides and added that to the edge so that they could loop around the edges. and cut that out. And check to make sure it fit well, and just duplicated that for the other side. Did one for the middle. And make sure that when you're doing it for the edges, you overlap the edges so that they overlap each other, so you're not left with the empty sides. And then we just stuck it on. I did end up having to use a little bit of glue to help it stay on better. So then we used our leftover pieces from the U shape, cut it off right there, and attached those. So then we move on to their slats, and we got this very, very flimsy kind of particle board so that we could bend it around the ways we needed to. And we took this waterproofer and we waterproofed the whole side, both sides of it, to make sure that it would withstand the weather. And because it's particle board, it wasn't really meant to go outside, but it worked. And as you could see, our cat walked across it and left her little paw prints, so that was sweet of her. But that's what it looks like all painted and waterproofed. Made it a little darker so it looked a little better. And I tested it to make sure no water was going to get through and soaked in. And then we took some of the leftover of that and we built the front by just putting it on like this and then tracing the structure and cut that out. Once we put the pieces on the back side, we left them off of the front, so we just tied them together so they wouldn't bounce around crazy. Then, as you can see, we came along and attached them to the front, and that's where the bending really mattered, that they were really, really flexible. We kept this kind of straight line right here to make sure, but then these bottom pieces, we cut half the size so that they could kind of bend up the way they needed to, like this. Because of the bend in it, they had to kind of go on top of each other a little bit. Then once we had them all attached, we just went down the edge of it and sawed all of the extra off to make that front. And then we took that piece that we cut out earlier and we began to attach that by screwing it into the frame. Make sure you waterproof that piece too. And that's what it looks like. So now we're making the back pieces. We want it to look wrecked. So we drew these kind of jagged, broken parts on our slats, and they look like that once they're cut out. And then we attach those to the very back. So here is what it's starting to look like. And once we finished doing that, we decorated it, put up the steering wheel, and that is your final piece. Hope you enjoyed this video.